You have been subliminally programmed to look down on Africans. And this fact is not a coincidence. The truth is, this was not just necessary for power and theft. It was at the heart of keeping humanity asleep, because it guaranteed that humans would never find the path to freedom that is right under their nose. Let me say that again. The path to human freedom, the actual liberation of the human soul, has always been right here, hidden in plain sight. And the single most effective way to keep you from finding it was to make you despise the people who were guarding it. Think about what you were taught. From the time you were old enough to watch a screen, open a book, sit in a classroom, you received a message. It was never spoken directly. It didn't have to be. The most powerful programming never announces itself. It came through the absence of African faces and stories of greatness. It came through images of poverty and chaos attached to a continent of over 1 billion people. It came through the language of developing nations and third world, applied to the cradle of the oldest civilizations on Earth. It came through a history curriculum that began the African story in chains, as though there was nothing before the ship, as though Africa had no philosophy, no mathematics, no architecture, no medicine, no cosmology, before Europe arrived to civilize it. That was not an accident of education. That was architecture. A carefully designed psychological structure whose purpose was to sever you, black, white, brown, Asian, every human being on this planet, from the source of something so powerful, so ancient, so threatening to systems of control, that it had to be buried beneath centuries of deliberate erasure and distortion. And here is what was buried. Africa is not just the geographic birthplace of the human body. Modern science confirms every human being alive today traces their mitochondrial DNA back to the African continent. Every single one. But beyond biology, Africa was the birthplace of human spiritual intelligence. The mystery schools of Black Kemet, what you were taught to call ancient Egypt, held a cosmological understanding of consciousness, of the soul's journey, of the relationship between the human being and the cosmos that the modern world has not surpassed. It has only imitated, and poorly. The Dogon people of Mali mapped the Sirius star system with precision that Western astronomy could not verify until the 20th century, with telescopes the Dogon never had. The Great Zimbabwe, the astronomical alignments of Namaratunga in Kenya, the surgical instruments found in ancient Ethiopia, the University of Timbuktu, which held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts on science, medicine, theology, and law, centuries before Europe's Renaissance. This is not mythology, it is history. History that was deliberately, systematically removed from the curriculum of the world. Because if you knew, if every person on this earth knew what African civilization actually was, the entire false hierarchy holding this world in place would collapse overnight. So the programming had to go deep, and it did. It is so deep that many Black people themselves have internalized it, taught to see their own heritage as primitive, taught to straighten what is naturally coiled, lighten what is naturally dark, quiet what is naturally resonant, taught that the closer you approximate to the aesthetic of the oppressor, the safer and more worthy you become. That is not self-hatred born from weakness. It is genius-level psychological engineering imposed on generations of people who never consented to the operation. But here's the part that most people miss. And I need you to stay with me here, because this is where the story changes. The same powers that programmed Black and brown people to forget their greatness programmed everyone else too. White people were not given truth. They were given a costume. The costume of superiority to ensure their silence and compliance. The costume of being at the top of a hierarchy that was invented, not discovered, not ordained, invented by a small group of people who needed the masses divided, distracted, and too busy performing their assigned roles to look up and see who was actually pulling the strings. That costume came with a price, a devastating price. It required the suppression of the soul, the numbing of consciousness, the slow spiritual death that comes from building your identity on the diminishment of another human being. It required white working class people to align with wealthy elites who were also exploiting them, simply because the costume of whiteness felt like something to hold on to when everything else was uncertain. It required generations of people to stay loyal to a system that was never actually loyal to them, in exchange for the psychological wage of believing they were better than someone. That is not freedom. It is a different kind of prison, a prison with better furniture, but a prison nonetheless. And the non-Black, non-white world, the brown, the indigenous, the Asian communities of the globe, they were handed their own version, a carefully calibrated position in the hierarchy, just enough status to feel separate from Blackness, just enough insecurity to feel threatened by it, just enough conditioning to participate, consciously or not, in the very system that was also consuming them. Because that is how the matrix sustains itself, not through one oppressor and one oppressed, but through a web where almost everyone is both playing a role and being played, where almost everyone is surveilled, managed, taxed, medicated, distracted, and kept just comfortable enough not to revolt, where the programming runs so deep across every culture, every language, every classroom, every screen, that people defend the very walls of their own cage and call it values. The same powers that stole from Africa also stole from you. They stole your access to real history. They stole your connection to land and community and the sacred. They replaced living wisdom with dead consumption. They replaced ceremony with content. They replaced elders with algorithms. They replaced the question, who am I really, with an endless scroll designed to make sure you never sit still long enough to get the answer. We are all, in different ways, prisoners of the same matrix, and the matrix has one fatal flaw. It only works if we keep looking at each other instead of looking at it. It only works if Black people stay wounded and isolated in their grief. It only works if white people stay defended and fragile in their guilt. It only works if brown and indigenous people stay caught between survival and assimilation. It only works if we never realize that our liberation is not in competition, that it is, in fact, the same liberation. Because here is the truth that the matrix cannot survive. A humanity that remembers its origin cannot be controlled. And the origin, the spiritual, ancestral, cosmological origin of the entire human family is Africa. Not as a hierarchy, not as a reason for anyone to feel inferior or superior, but as a homecoming, a remembering that beneath every cultural costume, beneath every assigned identity, beneath every wound that was handed to us before we were old enough to refuse it, there is a human soul, ancient, sovereign, and fundamentally, irreducibly free. So what does it mean to wake up? It means Black and brown people reclaiming the full, undiminished glory of their ancestry, not to prove something to the world, but to restore something to it. It means non-Black people having the courage to take off the costume, to grieve what was done in their name, to unlearn not out of guilt, which is just another prison, but out of genuine hunger for a world that is actually free. It means all of us asking, what was I taught that I never chose to believe? It means following that question even when it is uncomfortable, especially when it is uncomfortable. Because the discomfort you feel right now, if you feel it, is not a problem. It is the sensation of a lock beginning to turn. The ancestors knew this moment was coming. They encoded it in the wisdom traditions that survived the burning. They whispered it through the generations that carried the knowing in their bodies when the books were taken. They planted it in you. Yes, you. By making sure you would be alive right now, awake enough to hear this. This is not about blame. It never was. This is about breaking the spell of separation, the spell of hierarchy, the spell of a world organized around the diminishment of the very people who hold the blueprint for its healing. We were not put here to fight each other over the scraps of a system designed to consume us all. We were put here to remember. And the remembering begins the moment you decide consciously, deliberately, spiritually, that you are no longer available to be a prisoner. Not in the way they told you freedom looks, not the freedom of consumption or comfort or climbing a ladder someone else built, but the freedom of a soul that knows who it is, the freedom of a people that knows where it comes from, the freedom of a humanity finally willing to look at the wound, all of it, all the layers, all the players, all the roles, and choose together to heal. The matrix ends when we stop feeding it our division, and it starts right here, right now, with this conversation. I'm Dr. Holda, the founder of Awaken Medicine, the guide in Black Soul Heal, and I'm calling all of us home. And if this truth moves something in you, share it. Share it with those you love, you care about, you wish to set free. Because someone in your life is ready. They are just waiting for you.